I think that by coming to summits like this, you can speak with people throughout the entire ecosystem of the packaging industry, from suppliers to government officials to even some lawyers I just met at the break, as well as other CPGs like Danone that have common problems to be solved, and actually having conversations and really having those cross connections is what's going to help us take the packaging portfolios to the future. And without that, you can't really find success in sort of the network building and the ideas and innovative solutions that we come up with. So I think it's attending events like these, but also engaging with other partners, other companies, to better understand how can we learn from each other to then figure out how we can set ourselves up for success in the future. Yeah, it's one that's near and dear to our heart because we're trying to continue to scale recycling infrastructures and continuing to promote that through various partnerships we're a part of. One of the more recent things that we've done, and I would say we're a pioneer in, is actually launch a How to Recycle logo that has recycle check capabilities on it. So if you look and find the Silk Kids package today, or even a previous brand, which we've divested, Horizon, you'll find that there's actually a How to Recycle logo on the back that has a QR code inside of it. And that QR code ultimately is something you can scan with your phone, and it'll tell you exactly where you are and is there a recycle bin that is near to you? Does your town actually take this type of a plastic? And we'll let you know if it's something that you need to be responsible with and recycle, or if it's something that's probably better off if we pitched it so that it doesn't actually go into that recycling, network and that recycling stream and actually be bad for the end product. Yeah, I think it again goes back to the consumer and really understanding, how is packaging sustainability a value to them? And they need to feel proud of the things that they're purchasing and buying and interacting with day to day. And I think that you have to really figure out what that value is so that you can actually help pay for some of the changes that are being made that typically come at a high cost to go to a more recyclable film or a more sustainable material, as an example. And then once you have that value, you have to really look at, well, what's the cost of doing this? And then counterbalance those two. So as an engineer, how can I save more money on our manufacturing lines, or manufacture this new material in a different way, or redesign this package that actually, promotes more on shelf branding, promotes more, circularity on shelf to draw people in and actually grow that business and help offset some of those costs. So by trying to really drive efficiencies in your network across your infrastructure and save some money, you can actually reinvest that in how you communicate on shelf, and also convince your board that packaging sustainability is the right thing to do. And if you don't do it, there's a real cost of inaction. And consumers might not want to buy your product if it's not recyclable next time, and they might go to a competitor. So we really look at end to end. How do we make it as cost effective as possible across our entire ecosystem and supply chain, from ultimately the raw material that comes out of the earth to what does the consumer do at the end of the life, and then really look at how can we better engineer this for the future. Yeah, it's a great question, and I think one that's paramount right now in our conversations with our brands, also with our legal teams. If you look state by state across the US alone, we've got a lot of different things going on, and we need to better anticipate, well, where are those regulations going in California versus Oregon versus Washington versus New Jersey, and better anticipate sort of what that impact to our business could be if we're not in recyclable packaging. And you think about some of the laws in California by 2028, if we're not in recyclable packaging and we're not putting enough recycled content into it, there's going to be taxes and fees. And then by 2032, we might not be able to sell product there. So we have to anticipate and start to change our infrastructure by connecting those dots across our supply chain, connecting to the consumer, and then figuring out, how do we look at this total business case from a lens of cost of inaction? So if I don't do this, if I don't invest this money, if I don't valorize it through my brands to gain some of that value back, I might not be able to sell it. Or I'll be able to sell it, but it's going to come at a very heavy cost or a heavy tax. So we look at how do you quantify that cost of inaction and then put that back into the business case to then get your organization moving forward with making some investments and having a more long-term strategy. So we think it's paramount in sort of our business case and tactics to try to drive for a more sustainable future. Yeah, I think for me, I get a concentrated dose of all of the startups out there and what they're up to, as well as a reconnection with industry peers, folks that are familiar faces that I've seen before, or even some new players that are curious. And in those conversations and in those connections, usually we spark an idea or we spark a partnership. And then we can take that idea or partnership, evaluate it a little bit, and then ultimately you could create a project from it in a big company and a big brand. And then in theory, we could talk about it again and again and get it out there in the industry as an example that potentially could inspire other companies to do the same. So I think it's really about coming and collaborating and having good conversations to then spark sort of what's that next thought or what's that next idea to then continue on the path we're forward. I think you're starting to see a more diverse audience. I think in the past it's been a lot of big CPGs, packaging suppliers trying to sort out, what are we doing with the future and how could we better connect for our brands and our businesses. But now you're seeing folks from the government, you're seeing folks from the recycling industry, you're seeing folks from, legal firms that want to talk to us about how are you anticipating some of this regulatory and litigation out there in the world. So it's becoming much more diverse as an audience, which I think gives us a broader perspective to then be able to take those insights back to organizations to better drive forward the initiatives we're trying to do.